Cameras on.
Coasting?
Hi, Jim.
Steve?
No day fair.
Fred, how are you? Well. Left. Good, how are you? You got me with this one. This is the purple one.
No, I think it's just.
I was sitting on it, it just went over. You set me up.
No,
man.
no, I did not say that.
So I come a couple minutes early. Make sure I don't get-
So what?
Either next year,
I even checked.
Wait, I already sit in this, don't take
Well,
that.
that's probably the good one, you're gonna get the bad one.
Maybe it has something to do with the density of the
Maybe.
person sitting.
I don't know.
Get some blue for it.
PMI.
They're the only thing I don't have open, because there's so many of them, that I'm just gonna open them. What do you need those for?
To make a motion, that you invite me to share.
Garage and some of the
For the facilities?
killing, yes.
Okay.
Jim, can we get some glue thrown in those things?
They don't.
Seriously.
Huh?
Why not? Didn't the tunes and the Yountsons have glue in it?
No, so as
I
part
can't
of,
just take them over, this is that one, well, this one freaking,
This is when the wood's actually
This
split.
is-
Someone's gonna fall and break their neck. Oh, that's a problem.
yeah.
Yeah, that's not good.
I take them over to Y Missing Woodworks.
so these chairs all had casters put on them as part of redoing this room, which I don't know that was.
They were not designed for casters, that's the problem.
Okay, 12 o'clock, let's start the September 19th infrastructure committee meeting. Call to order, Melissa?
Steve Brenner,
Here.
Keith Dirt,
Here.
Jen Reimer, Fred Mogle,
Here.
and Dave Reeser.
Here.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? What?
I wish to protest again the double standards that persist in how ordinances and policies are applied. Immediately after the 2021 general election, Mr. Jenks spoke against using the public right-of-way for political yard signs. As
Guys,
and I am bringing here a quote, it's a picture actually from the zoning ordinance, paragraph 606, number 3, no signs other than school warning signs, official traffic, and similar municipal signs shall be erected within, voila, you can read it. Traditionally, political signs have been considered temporary in nature and therefore exempt from this chapter as a matter of civil liberty, freedom of speech, that's what you told me.
No, I'll explain it.
It's okay, it's fine. Whatever it was, the point of the speech is that the respective, anyway, so the respective campaigns, they were responsible at the time for removing the signs immediately. Nevertheless, Mr. Jenks spoke strongly in favor of tasking the police with the enforcement of 606A3. However, the standard was and continues to be applied preferentially. I have here pictures from November 2021 election I'll submit to the commission. Mr. Jenk himself placed, there were at least 3 signs in the right-of-way. Mr. Mogle also one, as just what I took picture of. There were more. Currently, the situation persists. November 22 general election preferential treatment persists. Republican candidates seem to benefit from special privileges. This is Old Mill Road. This is Museum Road right here, Old Mill Road. This is the VF outlets. And again, only what I could picture, what I came across. This is Meadowlark Road. There are actually 2 properties over there. I just pictured only one. Like I said, there is more stuff. So again, which way we go? Personally, I think it's a matter of freedom of speech, but I'm not in charge of the borough. So I think that we should look at applying this. If we want these signs to be behind the property line, let's do it. But let's make it the same for everybody. That's all my speech. Thank you.
I think the bottom line is we said we were gonna enforce it more so after that last election, because we defined the rules a little more clearly before that election. So I think if we see one in this election, I believe they will be removed.
I could take an hour and a half and get a lot of signs, and they're not only a Republican, by the way. I think that's sort of crazy saying that, but
I have,
Okay.
but it's a never ending battle.
The Democratic ones that I've seen, none of them are in the right of way, but hey, we can debate that.
Moving on. Service Electric franchise agreement?
There's no update on that. It is in the hands of the appointed council for the borough, and they're working on the
Okay. Western Berks Water Authority.
The filter gallery work is now pushed back to December, which I think Jim knows about. And then you'll bring them up to date, I think there's a meeting next week in the connection, so I won't say any more about that. Other than that, I have nothing to report.
Chris?
Nothing for me.
Ooh. The speed of which we're moving. Moving on. Any questions for the Western Berks Water Authority?
Yeah, did anything else ever come out of that other meeting we were in?
We're having a meeting next week.
They're having a meeting next
Oh,
week.
they are?
Yes, with Rob, I believe.
That's right.
Yes, yes.
Next Thursday or something like that.
I think it's Tuesday.
That's it.
You guys are invited, I didn't put you on the list, but
You wanna come?
hey, maybe you should probably
Not
be
like
there.
it's distributed until.
It's, I'll email you
Yeah, email, yeah, I would like to go to that meeting, yes, absolutely.
Could
Okay.
you let me know too, or maybe Dave
Sure.
forward too?
Yeah, I'll get it to
Because if
you.
I'm available, I'd like to hear.
I'll get it to you. I'll check it out.
We are meeting Tuesday the 27th, at 1 o'clock with the Wawa. Anybody wants to come and talk about a pipe under a bridge, feel free to be here.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
Until they decide what we're saying.
That's here.
That's here.
Here.
Wow, that's what I assume.
Yeah.
Okay. Zoning and codes report.
Sure.
Is there anything else about the Berks Water Authority? I kind of cut you guys off. We have a long meeting, so.
No.
Good. Zoning and codes report, Michelle?
The report's up on the screen. I'll let Joe weigh in on any property maintenance code updates if there are any. I do wanna make the board aware, make the committee aware for zoning hearing board meetings. We've had, issues getting a court reporter or stenographer. The two hearings that are scheduled for October 19th, Berks Court Reporting can't do it. I've been back and forth with some, court reporting firms that Dan Becker's office suggested. And I think I found one that will allow us to record and then send the recording to them for the transcription. So fingers crossed that works out, cause I don't know what other options we have since we can't meet via Zoom under the municipalities planning code.
President declared the pandemic over.
It's in
Guess we're
the
done.
review. We went to Chester, Lancaster, and Schuylkill counties and still can only find one, so.
Okay. Anything else we want to talk about, the zoning and codes reports?
Joe, do you have any updates?
There's like 17
Mhm.
items on here that basically will not be here already as of the next report they can take care of. I don't know if you want me to just go through.
Everybody have a chance to look through the zoning and codes report?
In a lot of them, it seemed like nothing had been scheduled, and I didn't understand why, because since I'm ignorant, it's easy for me to think that it's easy to schedule something. Can you explain why so many appear to be open?
So this report, if you look at the date, is for 9/14. Like I said, since 9/14, 17 of these have been cleared. Some of them, I don't know all the backgrounds of every single item here. Some of the things depending on the,
You know, when I get up there, deadline not set,
Set
that's
10:44.
frequent. I didn't know why not.
We have had communication from that one. They're having problems getting actual drawings from the engineer. I think it's the last update.
Yeah, so, my understanding, John, is a lot of times there's a deadline not set if we're in communication with the property owner, and there's back and forth, and it seems like there's a willingness for them to work with us.
Okay.
And the severity of the issue too. And if we have some communication back and forth and we're seeing progress, we will typically, that's the ultimate goal, is progress.
Within reason.
Exactly.
Yeah, somebody, it's like been years since you were getting some plans that you were asking to get.
Well, this one, we didn't even, they discovered it when they were doing the fire inspection, so we didn't even know about this one.
Which one's that?
The very first one.
1041 Fern Road.
Wasn't there, I think there was another one where you asked them for plans for more than a year.
On that, yeah, 2015.
Well, since you're pointing that out, I will make a point for the next meeting, if there's any way that we'll have at least an explanation.
Right.
I have an objection here on the Sunshine Act, that apparently none of this information is available publicly. I have tried many times to obtain at least basic information on the notices of violation. I see that our property is still there, although we've addressed everything that was told, and I think that I should have the right to know if I am on this list and have a right to discuss it, but no information is given whatsoever. Even the police reports, you have a minimal amount of information, what happened. They took the street number, but at least you know the street. When you put a right to know request on notices of violation, you get nothing. I don't think that's normal. I think we need to know, we need an openness to know who gets hit with what. Some people receive NOVs for not removing the snow, some other people don't. It's the same snow.
Respectfully,
Yes,
this doesn't sound like a sunshine law. It
It's
should sound
right
like
to
a
know.
Right to know. And
Yes.
You can't interrupt the meeting to talk about right to know. So,
Moving on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? This, we wanted everybody to speak about this, we could go to like 10 people's houses every month, because there are always a lot of people, the same people. All right, anything else? Water.
As we all know, that contract was pushed into 2023. I did get some word from Spot Stevens working for Western Berks, that whatever test they did to backflow water from Rawa into the Western Berks plant worked to a degree, and they haven't confirmed anything, but if that holds true, whatever the work at the plant is in December, it should be kind of seamless for us if that continues to go in the right direction.
The one that was pushed to 2023, specifically, which one was that that's on the capital list?
That's Trent Avenue from
Trent Ave.
Reading Boulevard to
Okay.
Parkside Drive north.
Okay. So you're officially moving that from,
That'll be rebudgeted in 2023.
but we should carry the approval from 2022 over to 2023, and it should be part of the ongoing reserve as opposed to being part of the 2023 budget.
I'm not gonna be adding another project for 2023.
No, but just from a budgetary standpoint, I think it's cleaner because it's already an approved project that was moved because of material costs, material unavailability. Rather than having it part of the new 2023 budget to be approved, or as part of one of your new projects, take it for, this one's already approved, so why do it again?
Right.
So I just think it's cleaner if we keep this separate from the new projects and/or approval parts, because it's already been approved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, as part of your new year budget, do you indicate in that budget the reserve expenditures that are
That's what
set
we,
aside?
that's what we have done in the past.
So those, the expenditure will appear there, but it just won't be listed as a new project.
Exactly. It is already, an already approved project, so that when we approve the overall budget for new projects, it won't be considered. I just think it's cleaner to do that since it's part of
The money's already there, Jim, we're just gonna wait for you to.
Yeah, I guess my question is, when I sit down with Phyllis to do budget items, it's gonna be a line item under the water for $336,650 as a line item. We just won't put it through any, council or infrastructural approval.
When we look at where we want to end up, the way we did the budget last year is we actually set a number where we wanted to make sure that at the balance at the end of the year, when we look at our revenue and expenditures, we want to end up with X amount of dollars in a capital reserve that wouldn't be used for ongoing operations or new projects.
She should make a
This-
reserve budget for that, okay.
Exactly,
okay.
so that number is net of this number, so that we don't look at that number twice. If that makes
When we
sense.
report the final numbers at the end of the year, we'll say, this is how much money we have, but this is how much money was reserved for projects that were supposed to happen in 22 that aren't gonna happen in 23.
So that our target number is X.
Correct. That should make you happy, Jim.
Yeah, that's a good thing for you, Jim.
Well, for Jim, what I'm thinking is, when he puts his budget together, he should indicate the source of funding. If it's
It's a
gonna be
reserve
a
fund.
new project,
Right.
or is it from reserve fund?
Existing reserve.
It's a previously approved budgetary item, and the funds have already been reserved for.
I'd imagine we're gonna approve a reserve.
You're not gonna have, well, just like your dump trucks.
When I sit
Dump
down with
truck.
Phyllis, I'm just gonna tell her the money that's in the 2022 budget now needs to go into a reserve
She knows.
fund for next year.
Just like your
That's it.
dump trucks and anything else that you had approval for this year that you didn't use. Net of anything that we added, like
It's like we did with the fire
$46,000
bridge.
for the.
You're gonna have that with Head Bridge, Cambridge Culvert, the Green Light Go is gonna carry over, you're gonna have a bunch of them
Yep.
that are carrying into 23 that were approved.
Yeah,
to
we have
spend
$1.7
in
million
22.
in the reserve now, that's just gonna change based on these ones that are getting pushed to next year.
Right.
Right.
Everybody good on water?
Yeah.
Moving forward, sanitary sewer.
There's payment application number 2 there that needs action, for, sewer specialty.
So we need a motion to make payment in the amount of $62,201.43 to Sewer Specialty Services Company, Inc. I had a motion.
Second.
Did I have a motion, Dave?
Yes.
And a second, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Move it forward to council. Sorry, I'm still trying to get used to not having a piece of paper. No, I'm good. I'm great. Berkshire Boulevard Pump Station, anything new on that, Jim?
We should have that's going out to bid next month, we should have the bids to review at the November 21st infrastructure meeting. The budget for that project, $750,000.
Okay. So nothing needs to be done at this point?
Nope.
Questions for the pump station? Why missing in West Lawn interceptors?
We've been meeting over this multiple times, this and the West Lawn interceptor. This one that I guess we need action on, I think.
Well, we don't have the easement documents in here. This is a Spring Township project. They call it the Wyomissing Interceptor, but it is a main that is owned by Spring Township. Spring Township is replacing portions of this main, and some of it goes through Borough Parkland. Therefore, because the borough is the owner of the real estate, the borough needs to grant new easements for areas of the line that are relocated, and also needs to grant construction easements for work to be done within the existing easement within other portions of the parkland. So the motion on the agenda would authorize those easements, but we are still waiting for the final documentation from Spring Township to prepare the final version of those documents.
Is this project in its entirety in Parklands, or does it dig up someone's next to their yard?
It's on the school property.
The school, Reedy's property.
Yeah, they need to get easements from the
Sweet's
school
property.
district and from a couple of private property owners, in addition to the
Is this
borough.
the one near Dr. Sweet's house?
Yeah, so this is why we pushed off doing Coolidge Circle.
Because they're replacing
They're gonna rip.
from Rabbit Hill down. Or Jack Rabbit Hill.
So if someone has a
From
fence
Rabbit.
that's gonna have to get ripped up, who pays for the fence to get ripped up and put back in?
The contractor or Spring
Spring.
Township.
Yeah.
So if someone has a private fence,
Well, it depends on the easement though. If the easement says that that's not a permitted structure within the easement, then it might be the property owner's responsibility.
The one bugaboo that I'm sure we'll hear about is at Reading Boulevard, at Dr. Sweet's. If you're facing his house on the left side, there's a row of very large pine trees. Large, that are all gonna have to fly for them to do their work. And I'm sure he's not gonna be happy.
They'll have to be removed.
Yeah. And these trees are
Put in the easement.
And in your typical easement, it says that, you know, you can't have
Trees.
large trees in the
Anything.
easement. So I imagine that the township has the right to remove those trees under the existing easement.
well, once we get the detail of what's gonna be removed, I
Yeah.
think it's probably a good idea to let the people know that we're gonna be digging up there, what they think is gonna be their yard.
The
They
Spring's
were,
been in
they reached out to
communication with
all
them.
the property owners already. that
Yeah,
already
they're
contacted-
aware.
This is
Spring.
a
Spring Township.
Spring Township.
They've already contacted Reedy and Sweet and,
This is a Spring Township project that's partially located within the borough.
Okay. So the property owners that may be affected will know how they're gonna be affected.
yeah.
And it sounds like there's already been some
John?
back and forth conversation as to, I think Dr. Reedy wants some pivot deer fence. and
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's between the property owner and Spring Township.
Copy.
Just keep in mind, for PR reasons, as a general thought, they're gonna, and it'll be big track hose, and it'll be disturbance down Old Mill Road from the pool to the Conservancy, then left down towards the creek in the parkland, across the boulevard, down by the duck pond, and along Parkside Drive south to the museum. So it's, when it happens, people are gonna be asking what's going on. It's substantial.
Can't hurt to get ahead of it, notify.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, we can try and put together some type of, you know, couple of sentences or a paragraph describing what the work is, why it's necessary, put it out as a blast.
And they're still a year and a half away from starting work.
Yeah.
They haven't applied for any of their DEP permits yet, so we're pretty up to date. And they sent us 60% drawings this morning, so we're still probably a couple months away from even having the permit drawings ready to go in.
So we don't have to do anything on the construction easements now, because they haven't given us the full plans.
Yeah, I don't think we need to. Do you have any?
I think the only thing was, I think, and they were here a year and a half ago, we talked about this back then, kind of conceptually. And I didn't think the committee or council had an issue, I think they're just looking for, is there gonna be any, are we anticipating a problem with
Do
giving
they
them
need
temporary?
these- Do they need these right-of-way agreements in place for them to get their permits?
No.
Okay, then I don't see a need for us to have any formal action. So this is more of just making the committee aware that this is going on. And we will, when we have the final drawings, be asking for formal approval of the easement agreements to be executed.
I would
So-
just make sure Spring is contacting our residents and make sure we know they are, unless we can do it also, can't hurt.
I mean,
Never hurts to over communicate.
from the meeting we had last Wednesday, they've met with them, talked to them.
I know they talked to Brian Reedy, because he told me on an unrelated matter, that he was talking about.
One thing, I don't wanna get too specific with any communication from the borough because it's not our project and we don't control the schedule of when things are gonna happen. But if the committee wants, we can certainly try to get some general communication out. I think the biggest impact on borough residents is gonna be disruption within the parkland. And
Yeah.
people, you know, the normal routine that people have using the parkland is gonna be disturbed by this project. And also the aesthetics of the parkland are gonna be affected temporarily during the construction.
Plan to put grass seed back down?
Yes.
That would be all right.
Yeah.
Short-term pain for long-term gain, right? Okay, anything else on the Wyomissing West Lawn Interceptor? Moving on to streets.
There's a payment application for H&K, I believe it's number 3. There is a slight difference. After this was put into the package here today, there was a small error in line striping on Reading Boulevard. So the new number that you need to approve is $583,000. $583,054.38, as opposed to $938.62. 583,054.38.
Say that one more time.
It's less.
583,054.38.
Correct.
That'll get to the correct there.
Just make it part of the motion.
Okay, so we need a motion for payment application number 3. Anybody willing to make that motion?
Oh, so moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for payment application number 3. Is it okay if we reduce the amount from $583,938.62 in your motion to $583,054.38?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Pass it on to council. Capital estimate.
Jim and I have put this together. This is what's going to go in the budget as a proposed street work for next year. 1.4. Look at it there.
How does that compare to this year? Just talk about
The same, but this year, you'll see at the end, we're not gonna hit the contract price was 1.3 with the change order, and we're gonna come in at 1.1 and change, so, we're gonna come in under budget this year. But that's close to what we proposed last year.
Okay. Any questions on the, right now it's just a proposed preliminary
Right.
capital estimate?
Yes.
Okay, hearing none, we'll keep moving. State Hill Road improvements.
I talked to an engineer called the other day. I think we're unclear of construction dates. He led me to believe it's 2027, and I've been here in 2025. So I don't think when this happens, it's 5 years out, from what the engineering firm told me. Which is good, because you look at those 3 items I have up there. There's a sanitary sewer that runs from Greenwood Mall to the 222 overpass. That, in my opinion, if this street work's happening, should be redone. Gives us time. As part of the Wyomissing Creek Group's DEP stormwater permit, one of those clover leaves at the 222 State Hill Road interchange is on our list of items to abide by our permit, which needs to be coordinated with PennDOT. And also, the Western Berks Water Authority has a meter pit at Woodland Road. That if a traffic circle does indeed go in there, it would have to be relocated, which is pretty major. So there are just 3 things that need coordination with PennDOT or their engineer, and the guy I spoke to was very open to having a sit-down with everybody involved, you know, at some point in the next 6 months.
So where they're at on that project is, I assume the engineering firm that Jim talked to is designing the project for them to look at how much right of way they'd have to take, what the exact impact would be, and determine, are they gonna go with roundabouts, or are they gonna go back to traffic signals? So they'll do that, they'll do their cost estimate, and then PennDOT will make a decision which version they're going with. And that could be 5 roundabouts, it could be 2 roundabouts and 3 traffic signals, it could be any combination of the above. And then they will come back in here to speak to this committee as to what the final plan is. Again, what the impact's gonna be on private property owners, what if anything they need to take for right of way or potentially, by eminent domain, and what it's going to look like, so.
Well, whenever we get to that meeting, I would argue that we should probably have any of those private property owners notified separately on top of the normal notification. Okay.
Jim, wasn't that sewer line from Greenwood Bulk? I thought that was the one that was inevitable, like, needed to be done well before this was gonna be come about.
No, that one already that was just a short piece right underneath Woodland Road. This is, actually goes down State Hill.
So this is the one that was gonna collapse is fixed?
Yes.
Okay.
Thankfully, yes.
Okay. Any other questions on State Hill Road improvements? Bike sharing station, more good news?
Yeah, that's just, I mean, I'll keep that on there moving forward, so this committee's aware of the monthly income that's coming in. Those bikes, I think we talked about this last month, those bikes will be pulled sometime in November, depending on the weather.
I haven't had any issues with bikes disappearing.
The only issue we've had is someone that was riding one, dumped it on the museum grounds, and when the museum director found it, there was a bent pedal, and I think the brakes weren't working properly, but I notified the company, they came and picked it up, it's fixed and back in the rotation at no cost to us.
Don't we know who that person would be if they rented it?
Yeah, and I mean, Movatics goes back to them and charges them.
Okay, great. All right. Cambridge Avenue stream work. Anything new to there?
We continue on with PennDOT in their clearance process. So we've heard nothing from them on the environmental clearance forms. We had another meeting with our project liaison. We have another one coming up, I think, next week. And she pre-approved our packet, but it has to go into them, and it's been into them for about 75 days now.
Why did that be constructed in the winter again?
Trout.
Wild trout.
Drought. Behind Cambridge.
Wild trout's designated section of the stream.
Okay.
So we hope to have all the permits, the street clearances we need from PennDOT, environmental right of way and bridge structure unit. We hope to have them all by June of '23. But they're like one after the other, so we have the second and third ready to submit, but we can't submit till the first is approved. Even though they go to different units. Got a little PennDOT.
So I have in my notes from last month, closer. I can put that back down.
Well, I think we're still, like, every day you get closer with PennDOT because
Sooner or later they might
when it
answer.
sits on their desk one more day closer when they have to
They'll
use
answer
it
the
off
questions.
their desk.
Closer still.
Closer times 2, all right. Wyoming Creek pedestrian bridge.
That's the same thing.
Same exact status.
Oh, is that closer written there too? Okay. Yeah. Green Light Go last month, 2018, we didn't have a start date.
Start date's November 22, basic visit equipment, that's when it'll arrive. We'll start putting them in November, so this is gonna carry over into 23 for payment.
Green Light Go's been approved, we don't have to do anything there. Okay.
No.
Green Light Go 2019,
Same thing, we bid them all as one contract, so they're both combined.
good. Nothing to be done there. Park Road Bridge.
I reached out to Chris Cutbro from PennDOT, who is the person that agreed December of '21 that they would add the bridge to their list for this year, since September's gonna come and go pretty soon and it will not be ideal painting weather, to see why this hasn't been done yet, so I'll let you know when I know.
So you contacted, all right. Special infrastructure meeting. It's not now, is it?
Yeah,
No. Okay.
it's part of this meeting, whether
Got
you
it.
wanna do it at the end or,
Let's see if there's any other basic, if no one minds, let's see if we can get through any of this. Everything else is there. The Hewitt House is probably something we need to talk about for, not 10 years. We need to do that
1
soon,
year.
right?
Yeah, so that lease expires at the end of this month, so assuming this or this committee's in favor of the lease moving forward for another year, and it would be with Katie Hannon's daughter Emily. Katie will be moving out, but Emily has been residing there for at least the past couple of months. She's an adult, not
Emily,
Hannon.
That rent
I think we need
seems
to,
really low for a whole house.
does anybody have any issues with this? The only thing I would say is I think we do need to send it to finance to see if we wanna do any change of rate.
Do you wanna talk about how if we raise the rate, she's gonna ask for 6 other things to be done to the property?
It's like a love-hate thing for me, this Hewitt house. I'm glad somebody's living there, it stops it from deteriorating, but, sometimes they're a little more needy, if you will. We just did some, there was a section of an interior wall that got damp, we fixed, painted. She wants more painting done. She every year reminds me she likes some insulation between the attic and the living area. I can fend her off if the rent is around there, if we would increase the rent to $2,000 or whatever. I'm sure she'd become a little more demanding and some maintenance there.
What's the rent history there?
It went up a couple of years ago, I remember saying we took it up like $50 a month.
It's nothing crazy.
1,600 now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what's
16.
what's been the history? I
I think it started at maybe 14 or something.
guess?
She's been there maybe 5, 6 years.
The mother was, the mother moved
Yeah.
out, right?
She's not, I mean, she's in the process of moving out, she's not totally out.
Should get that appraised, I think. Finance administration, get Tom Bellagers and that appraised.
Appraise the rental
Yeah.
value.
That
Yeah,
metal,
you
that.
can do for that.
Who can do that?
Tom Delarose.
Tom Bellagers.
900 block of,
Or any,
See if we get water.
any certified appraiser.
We've used Tom on other stuff.
Alright, so what we're doing is in principle, we're agreeing that we're gonna continue to lease it probably to them, but we're gonna have to make sure that the borough's getting its fair share and all that other good stuff off the bounce out by demands, that she may make. So we can talk about that in finance and admin.
Yeah, but if you want you to get the process started now as opposed to waiting until finance.
Do we wanna get,
That's what I
do we
mean.
wanna get the,
If-
do we wanna get an appraisal of it?
I mean,
Yeah.
that's what this committee suggested.
And you're not,
I'm gonna do it.
you're not looking for the value of the property, you're looking for the rental.
Rental income. So I can have Tom do that, my only concern is, Chris, this lease expires September 30th.
11 days.
Alright,
Is it go over month to month? Do you know how it's worded?
I don't know how it's worded. There is some verbiage about that, though.
I mean, typically these have language, but I don't remember if this one specifically does. It's for a year, but then at the end of the term, if it's not renewed, it becomes month to month.
they've been good tenants, correct?
Yes.
Generally, yes.
So,
1,600 is crazy low, but I can't
But it
shop.
already is under.
Is it presently 1,600?
Yeah.
Yes.
then, in that case, because we're 11 days from the deadline, I would make a recommendation that we approve it for another year at the same rate. And then during next year, at some point, we get Tom Bellairs to give it a rental real estate, whatever that was, that we said we're gonna do.
Well, would you wanna do it for 6 months?
Well, we have to see the lease.
It might be that it's month to month if we don't extend it right now.
If you give me a second.
Do you need this for 17?
Yeah, but we're gonna come back to that with the whole thing. So I'm gonna make a motion that we extend the lease another year at $1,600 to Emily or to her mother. I'm not sure which one's gonna be the leaseor. Was that the leasee? Leasee. And then sometime before next year, we come up with an appraisal price of the rental value. So I made that motion. Does anybody want a second?
I'll second that.
I think we should get an appraisal first before you, and see the lease,
Well,
before you make any
if you give me a second, I can pull the lease up.
Okay.
The question is, if you get the appraisal and it jumps into 2,500, are we gonna charge you 2,500?
Right, that's,
And then
not
she doesn't wanna be there?
and then she's
Yeah.
gonna make Jim
Then
six
she's going,
fifty.
or
Automatic
you're gonna-
three
Three
months
cities,
for a 1 year
three
term.
cities.
See, they give them 60
We're all
days
back in
notice
news for
already.
1 year term,
Unless we give them 60 days notice.
so we can't do anything this year anyway.
So, the motion's on the table.
Yeah, I'll
Okay,
second.
yeah.
Motion and a
Call-
second.
Call a question.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Let's make sure we get time to do that sometime next spring or something like that.
And then, Jim, maybe you should actually say, you know, if we actually have to fix this up, what are the big punch points of this thing?
The bathroom.
Are they paying on heat and water and everything? or
90
is
day
that
notice?
what you-
60.
60.
Yes, Jim.
She's
Are
gonna
they-
want that bathroom redone.
I'm sure.
Are they paying their own heat and water and everything? Or is
She
that
pays,
built into the
she
price?
pays for her heating fuel, it's oil, she pays for that. We pay for the water, the alarm service, and I think any Ehrlich pest control issues. But that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's there for another year if she wants to.
Yeah.
Actually, no.
We didn't do anything.
Okay,
We gotta wake up and do it.
Right, Frank?
All right.
Somebody-
Is is number 19 part of the 10-year plan, Michelle? Wyomissing sign, blazing signage, Wyomissing trail blazing signage?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of that?
Is that part of the 10-year plan? 19?
No.
Good, let's talk about the Wyomissing trail blazing signage.
So as part of 4th Street being constructed, the 4th Street extension, Jim and I noticed after the project was done, PennDOT didn't put up any directional signage, so you make that turn and people don't necessarily know where to go to get to the highway, even though it's self-explanatory once you have driven it a few times. We thought that some signs to kind of point people in the right direction, both on North Parkert and then on the traffic circle made sense. We talked to traffic planning and design about that. They came up with this plan, ran it through PennDOT. PennDOT, unofficially okayed this, if you wanna call it that. Do we wanna get into the cost sharing part with Equus?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that's something, in attempting to close out the various bonds that Equus has with the borough for redevelopment of the VF North lot, Chris is in the process of drafting an agreement that they would provide cash up front for the cost of the post-development traffic study, and then any improvements that they'd be on the hook for that are part of that study. We had discussed internally using some of that money to pay for the cost of these signs, since this was done for their project.
I think this is gonna be an add-on to that, in addition to the improvements estimate we have.
In addition to the improvements estimate for Wawa, I think that this would be part of that number that we had, the,
87,000,
Yeah.
what was it, 125 for North,
it was 87, I think.
that's for Wawa, right?
Whatever it is.
We have one for Wawa, we have one for VF North. It would be in addition to it would be part of the money for VF North. Because some of the work we had to do on the signal upgrades at these intersections for the retiming, we actually, TPD already drew all that as part of our Green Light Go project. So we could probably trade the engineering time that was supposed to be in the draw of them for the signage, and it'd be a wash, and that number wouldn't, Equus wouldn't be paying any more, the borough wouldn't be paying any more, being that number they agreed to back when their land development was done for post-construction traffic studies and signal retimings.
Oh, that's the 130.
130, we have 130,000 for that. So, out of that 130, the signs, I forget how many signs are, there's a lot.
Looks like a lot of
And some of them, a lot of them are existing. The ones with little asterisks, which are really hard to see, are existing. But you figure $165 a sign, there's probably 50 signs there. So I mean, talking $8,000-9,000 in signage.
I just drove over there because I want to look at Public Works building this morning. I'm not sure you really need a lot of signs in it. It's pretty simple to know where you're going. Not sure you want to clog everything up in more signs. It's a lot of signs.
I agree, by the way. It just seems like a lot of signs for an area that looks pretty
And
nice.
some of them are even mounted upside down, it's really confusing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
That's a lot of signs for an area that you.
And that's not
This
safe.
Larry
Yeah, so
doesn't
that
help
Fourth
the
Street, you can
cause.
only go right anyway.
What's that?
Like when you're coming up Fourth onto North Wyomissing Boulevard, you can only make a right.
Yeah, I'm all for more signage, but I like a dumbed down version.
Like if you're coming up North Fourth
I
on the
could
circle,
agree
come up
with
to
that.
North, you can't go left on North Wyomissing Boulevard.
You can go straight though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You can go
but-
straight around the circle.
I think the biggest thing is, when we originally approached them, we weren't thinking to the level they did it. We were thinking something on North Wyomissing Boulevard when you got off the highway to direct you in town.
Yeah.
And then we're thinking something on North Park when you came over the bridge to tell you to make a right on Innovation to get to 422. To kind of keep the traffic from going to the Park Road, North Wyo signal. And they kind of went traffic engineer crazy
That
on it.
area looks so nice over there now, I mean, this just looks.
Can we find a way to dumb it down without?
Yeah, I can just X off the ones we don't want, say here's what we're doing. I mean, it's that simple. We don't have to go, I mean, that is your traffic engineer, pocket protector, and belt and
When
suspenders.
do we plan
signage
on
pattern.
doing this?
Oh,
Springtime next.
Could you, for
summer.
next meeting, could you put X's through the ones that we
Sure.
don't need? And we'll look at this next month, is
Okay.
everybody agreeing with that? Don't do anything fancy, Jim, literally,
That's all I was gonna do.
X.
I was gonna X them and just highlight the ones that would be new, or like a yellow highlighter,
Fred X.
Yeah, highlight the ones that are there for us,
okay?
and put circles around the one we're gonna keep, and cross out the ones we're not. Dumb it down for me, please.
You got it.
All right. So, is the roof project part of the 10-year plan for the fire company, or is that something?
That's already approved,
Let's discuss let's then go back to number 17, I'm sorry for going out of order, to discuss the firehouse AC and roof.
I don't know that there's anything to really discuss, it's self-explanatory.
It's on the agenda, so
Or
we'll make
approve
sure-
payment.
No, I think we're good.
No,
Council already approved.
that's finance.
So we're good, so can we take it off?
supposedly starting for the roof.
Let's take it off the agenda then.
Finance approved the payment for that, so, finance and council.
Okay. So I believe we discussed everything on the agenda, obviously not all but two business, that isn't the 10-year, part of the 10-year plan. Is that a fair statement? Did I miss anything? Okay, then I would like to go into the special infrastructure meeting on the 10-year facilities. I'll also say for those of you who didn't eat, if you want to eat, go ahead.
Or if you don't, we'll stay on this.
Yeah.
Oh, did we,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, you
the
can probably
rate
get
adjustment
rolled.
request for PA Water,
I don't, there's,
mention it?
there's no update there, I
Oh,
mean, we've
okay.
sent a letter to them, they basically responded telling us to go come see them. Yeah, Mayor,
Oh, yeah. You said they were gonna say.
yeah,
Okay,
You say listen.
and then asked if we would wanna sell our water system to them.
I want to continue on that objection. I have the law here before you go into the next, or if you want, I
what
can do it.
objection do you want to, what are you continuing on?
Finish the discussion with the objection. I have the law right here. I don't think it's correct what was said.
What's the subject about?
Sunshine Act. So,
So you have 2 minutes
so
and
the-
8 seconds left.
the discussion was about the lack of information, whether it's, and the reason I went to Right to Know is because I'm not a lawyer and I don't have, you know,
Let me hear.
so, the agenda itself has no information on that, and that is part of the Sunshine Act. The point was that not even under the Right to Know, you obtain any of that information. And I'm gonna read here quickly from the discussion. This is, I'll point it to you, Chris, Senate Bill 554.
Thank you.
It is advisable to use the same standard for agendas whereby the description of the agenda item must be of sufficient specificity to inform that there is in reality a specific discrete matter or area board that has determined should be discussed, deliberated, or decided official action. In sum, avoid general cryptic terms and provide as many specific concrete details as possible. Another phrase that I think is very good to hear is to permit generalized fluff and this is a quote, would frustrate the very purpose of this act. The whole idea is open, freedom of information. And when we do not have anything about that particular subject, whether in the agenda or obtainable, because you can only do a right to know request if you know what you're talking about. If it's not on the agenda, how can you do the right to know? So that has been my discussion over and over, that the agenda has nothing for the public to discuss at the beginning. You put the public speaking at the beginning, but you don't give us information of what is being discussed, what's on the agenda, so how do we know what to talk about?
Perfect, thank you. All right, 10-year plan? How do we wanna start this? I don't have the beginning of my first 10-year plan.
So, to give you a little background on why you got the Cowder Kelly Architects plan documents, back in 2008, the Borough commissioned Cowder Kelly to come in and do a feasibility and master plan study for every borough facility, including the Hewitt House, the Parks Barn, Public Works Garage, I think even the Tree House. So, I shared that. I thought really for John more than anyone, it would be appropriate for him to see some options that were put out there for the police department so he could review and, weigh in as to whether any of that makes sense. Some of the things that were called out in the potential future options for this building on the police department side don't make sense anymore. Like the whole basement area over there that was gonna be converted to storage space if the police department would move elsewhere. Now that we have a standing project, we don't necessarily need more storage space for things like that, but I think it helps just kind of think outside of the box as to, okay, that's still viable space if the PD would go somewhere else that something could be done with. So, I was told I had a conversation with Mike, this is the only hard copy he has that I have to give back to him tomorrow, which is why we scan this and now have it electronically. He presented this to council in 2009, he said they looked at him like he had 3 heads and he never heard from anybody again. So, I don't know that anybody's looked at this, talked about this, or done anything with it since it was presented in 2009. If nothing else, there's really good background information, we have all the square footages, all the floor plan layouts for existing conditions. This is what I use to update our statement of values for our insurance policy, it at least tells us, if we wanted to hand this over to a contractor moving forward to do anything to these buildings, here's what we do.
I tried to scan through all this stuff, and I finally got to the bottom number, and in 2009, it was $15 million. I can't even imagine what it would cost today.
No.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I just don't know that it makes, I think maybe we need to look at this thing from a macro level and say, does it really make sense to start talking about, let's go fix this little building up, this one, or should we be looking at a much broader range and say, what makes sense on a larger scale? For $30 million, if that's what it is today, which we're not gonna spend because we don't have it, you can knock it all down and start over again in some places, and maybe that's part of the answer.
Well, and that's.
But, let's look at this thing big picture rather than, I drove past the Public Works building, I don't know how much room's actually over there, Jim. I know the plan we did that we quickly had to put together, I don't know if that's.
Well, if we have time, I have some photos I took when we started this process of our garage, and Shillington has a garage that's maybe 10 to 15 years old, same with Coombroo. And you can you can see the comparison of what a real garage should look like compared to what we have space-wise, meeting room-wise, lunchroom-wise, it's night and day. I'm sure that same for the PD, same for the council chambers. You go to Spring Township and you have a real room that you can have a meeting in. I just think there's a lot of deficiencies here, and this building is.
I don't think anyone that works in this building is in favor of us staying in this building. I have no safety, I have no security, I have nothing to stop Joe Brown from walking in off the street and going up to anybody's office and doing God knows what. John, I don't know if you're in favor of staying or moving, to me, the only plus this property has, we own it. That is the only thing it has going for it, is we own this land, we're not paying mortgage, we're not paying any money, but I think if we started talking about things the police department needs, what admin needs to make this property work, you have all the exterior stuff, you have parking, you have access, and then the internal stuff, I think you're quickly approaching a price tag that exceeds what the cost would be to move elsewhere and build one facility for everything.
So is there enough room over there? How much can we squeeze into that over there and do it right?
The garage, not what you need,
They own that big grass lot behind there also?
but the
That's
new
where the new
building's gonna
building's
go there.
It's enough for the public works department and some police, we had figured in some police area over there, not for office space, but just for evidence and if they need to process a vehicle or something. But it's not enough for a campus, no.
Have a lot of changes been done since those plans? Like, I looked through them, since those plans that were presented in '09. Like, a lot of things weren't compliant, ADA wise, all these different things. I mean, obviously you put some AD in the room, which I guess wasn't here in '09.
This room was gutted in 15.
Okay, so this was upgraded. Like, what else was upgraded? Was the garage upgraded?
No.
Well, we did
Nothing. Like,
some
cause
exterior.
that plan says you're gonna put like a 2,000 or 2,400 square foot police office building. Like, there's room.
Yeah, that was one of the options, but
That was one of
again,
the options,
Chowder
yeah.
Kelly presented this plan and nothing happened with it. So the only changes I'm aware of to this building, we did half the window project, we upgraded council chambers, we upgraded the HVAC system in 2015, which we still have issues with. Nothing's been done to the PD, and I mean, now we're coming up to going into the budget conversation, Jim has a $100,000 number to upgrade the HVAC and the PD side. Does it make sense to spend that, knowing that we don't know what we're doing? Like, there's all of these, what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Well, I mean, at some point, we gotta figure out what real estate is available that
So
we
the-
would be able to put some of this stuff in.
The only thing, Chris, I wanted to talk to you about at some point, would it make sense, Shops at Wyomissing, the Crown Plaza, and the Berkshire Mall to adopt an official map as a option B, depending what happens with them in the next 3 years, that they have to carve out, yeah, the Inn at Reading, that they have to carve out space for us? I mean, we have a couple of commercial property options,
How about across the street? What are
It's
they doing?
not for sale. So apparently
Did you
customers
ask them?
has a 17-year
Some long-term lease, and the last time I talked to
Yeah.
them,
I think that was the golden opportunity.
Yes and no, I don't know that that building necessarily works either, and that I think we're still gonna have parking issues.
It's a hell of a lot better than what we have here. This was never meant to be an office building.
No, agreed.
You're throwing good money after bad. Every cent we put in this building, you just, it's like open the window and throw it out the window, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with that 100%, but I don't necessarily think the building across the street is a long-term great option.
Don't you really?
No, I think we're gonna have parking issues over there.
What about splitting the admins and the PD, not in the same building?
I have no issue with
Well, that's
that.
what the plan was, the police department over there.
Yeah.
And that's what Spring did.
Borough Hall here.
Problem is, it's not for sale. So
Yeah.
we can talk about all we want, but it's not
But
gonna.
it's, but could admin fill this whole building? If it were just admin alone without.
I
the
mean,
police department?
assuming we would put council chambers over there, but then you still need to make some type of security upgrade. I mean,
and accessibility.
yeah, and where are we going while that's happening?
Well, we'd have to be creative about that. It
Trailers in the front yard?
Yeah.
seems like it's a viable option that have to be looked at. And then just relocate the police department.
What are you gonna do with this building if you're not using it?
We'd have to.
Sell it.
it's gonna be-
I've talked to
sell.
developers about, like, you have to find the right person, like a Steve Najarian, but, I mean, I do think there are developers out there that would want it. The question is, would they?
Would they want it and tear it down?
Probably.
Well,
Well, they
look,
put two
Steve
houses
didn't
in
tear
front
the
of
school building down.
No,
I mean.
But I don't think the PD works from an architectural standpoint attached to this if we're gonna convert this to apartments.
So we have to come up with, the bottom line is, if we were ever gonna move out of here, and we do sell this, we're gonna have to deal with this is a Tuna or a Janssen house, I forget which one it was.
Tuna.
You know, and people are gonna scream bloody murder. Personally, it is what it is. That's my personal opinion. But there will be people here who will be screaming that we're selling a property that Mr. Toon lived in. Now, that being said, Mr. Jansen lived up there and has now got a pool house next to it, so it's,
Right.
can't argue that, but,
I think you could also make the fiscal argument, you know, put
yeah,
the numbers.
oh, absolutely.
What's,
So what is our next step then? Where do we go? I would like it to personally be in, I don't know, John, do we have to be centrally located?
Well, so I came up with a few things for staying or going. If we stay, as I see it, it does keep us together. So if they do have an issue, we're kind of right here. It makes it easier if I have to come over and talk to Michelle or Jim even real quick.
Yep.
I'm walking the aisle versus driving over here.
Or a Zoom meeting, right?
Right.
Got it.
But, I put in here the historical significance, I'm sure that's gonna be an issue for some people. We're pretty centrally located here, so it makes, if we have to get down to Wawa at Lancaster Museum, or if we need to get over on the north side of the hills, you know, we're pretty much right in the middle, so we can get places pretty quickly if we're right here. You know, and we know where, people know this place, so it's easy for them to find us. You know, it's gonna take some getting used to if we move or if everybody moves, for them to learn where we're going to be. Problems with actually staying here, the construction part of it is going to be an issue, I think. When this was built in '91, the police were still over here, so it wasn't really affected, with this being built. But we had, some regulations that we need to follow with criminal history, with sensitive materials around. So to be able to walk around our police department without somebody with you, you have to be under CJIS compliant with the Criminal History Act and stuff. So you got contractors and electricians and whoever that are gonna be over there doing the work while we're still trying to work there. That's gonna be difficult, because I don't know how many it's gonna be, but we're gonna have to maintain some kind of control over those people, because they're not gonna be in compliance with all that. Plus, detectives working at their desks trying to make phone calls and do interviews in our interview room and with the sound of jackhammers and,
You couldn't
Electric nail
be in
guns,
there
things
while
like
they were
that.
doing the work.
right. We would have,
You'd have to move.
if it was determined that we were to stay there and some
You can't.
addition was done,
It's
we would have to
impossible.
go somewhere.
You couldn't
for
be in
a
there
bit.
according to OSHA with them doing that kind of work. You'd have to
So-
vacate. You wouldn't even be.
It would be easier, I think, if the police department, something was built somewhere and then we moved into it, and if it ended up being that the administration stayed here, then that could be constructed once we're out to fit whatever needs decided.
It just seems that the police administration makes sense to me,
I,
Because
I'm
it's
not
similar-
sure. I mean,
it's
I'd love to see
I-
it all
I
stay.
agree.
police makes sense
I-
It's similar
together.
type of space you need. You need office space, you need storage room, you need file room, you need parking. So it seems like those two things mesh together. It doesn't make sense necessarily to have it where the dump trucks are, or where the tree house is, or where the fire trucks are, but it does make sense to have them together.
See, I think it makes
Office
sense to
space.
have PD and fire together.
Our-
It happens a piece of that.
Could be.
We've just outgrown that. I think almost from the time it was built, it was almost too small because we kept growing. And our, what really worries me is, a big one is our female locker room. We have space for 3 female officers. So we had 3, but the retirement of Officer Terry and I, we're down to 2, so there's a little bit more room in.
Yeah.
But there's a very good possibility that
Right.
we end up hiring 2 very soon, and what if they're both female? What do I do with the 4th? I think we have issues if I say to them, well, I got room for one of you, but I don't have a place to put another for you to get changed, and things like that. So there's just some issues over there. And I've thought about if we stayed, how can we make some room with some additions but I don't know that it's feasible, because it would, in my mind, it takes us that way towards Terrace, and out a little bit.
and we have that property between us and our neighbors, that I think that we might be able to create a driveway down the terrace, maybe create some parking for police cars, so that this lot is more available for people to come to do business, either at the police department or, the administration side. But I don't know, see, all that kind of thing, we'd have to have an architect come in and see what the feasibility is, and, there's a retaining wall out here, so I don't know how far we could take the building that way.
And it's such an elevation change over there, you could be 3 foot, now you're stepped up and
Listen,
down.
is anybody gonna argue the fact that expanding here doesn't make a whole lot of sense?
I agree.
Yeah, it
Is
does.
anybody gonna agree
but-
that that makes sense, let's put it that way?
Yeah,
No one is, right?
It's just, you're patching it, you're patching it for another year or two, or making it, and you're gonna look back and say, why?
Do we is there any land that we own that we could put a police department,
no, that's the problem.
okay?
Now the
So we need to figure out where we could go. It becomes a tax issue because if we're taking over a taxable piece of land, that would be a
Build
problem,
some Christian build some schools.
right? I mean,
I know.
if we're gonna talk about crazy stuff, I don't mean this is crazy, but is that lot of land across the street, that's now the library, big enough if we raised everything on it
I don't think so.
Yeah.
and we put the library here?
I don't think so, but
Oh,
For
I
the
hear you.
police department and admin?
Sure.
But that building wouldn't work, that building would have to go bye-bye.
Yeah.
But could we
Start
put a
over.
police department and an admin building right there, that property we already own, and then move the library here somehow, some way? Go ahead, Jim.
There is a piece of property, but it's very bad access. If anybody's been to or know where our tree department works out of,
In the hills.
they're in the hills,
Oh,
there's
in
a
fact,
big
there's not
stone
any.
parking lot, there's a T-ball field.
hey, we're looking at putting pickleball there, hold off.
That's right.
Well, it's
Yeah,
flat,
that's
it's
being
flat,
full, yeah.
it just has access issues.
But pickleball
And that's
courts.
really not essentially
And that's
located.
not,
It's
no,
not
that's
centrally
Barlow
located.
get to. I don't know that there's any land that we own as a borough.
Library could go there.
There's not.
I don't know what the plans are behind VF there, is there like 10 acres or something
No,
back there? I
the
don't know.
You need a bridge to
island
get to
or
it.
whatever.
Yeah,
Fran-
so you need a
I-
second
I see
bridge.
you have that.
Use of an
There's the, as far as open lots that I see, you have Reed Avenue, there's still some.
I have no idea. where we
That's
have it.
Kinsley, so 10, like we're,
That's not big
So
enough.
you're off of State Hill Road, you make the right, you go up the hill, on the right-hand side is a complex that was built in the former Glengarry
Yeah, I know
area.
what you're talking
that
about.
land's also not for sale, though.
Right, I
It's
know.
leased.
That's
Not
too,
that much
that's
there,
too
is
small.
there? There's a lot in the back that's
Restriction
open.
on the front yard here.
I'm sorry?
Is there any restriction against development?
No, I mean, and that's one of
That
the,
would be my next question.
yeah, I mean, we could do something on the front yard, it's, again, architecturally, what does that look like?
Well, hey, at some point, we're gonna architecturally screw this whole thing up by selling it anyway,
Yeah.
right? So,
Chris, what about any?
there is a big piece of land in
Right
the very
there.
front that we could do something on.
The eminent domain seems to make more sense to me.
I'm sure we have to get someone here to design how to get ingress and egress and all that other kind of good stuff, but that is a plot of land that we could use.
Yeah, From here,
We
Yeah.
can figure that out.
Right on the corner of Penn and
right here.
Robinson Boulevard.
Right here.
I mean, some people redevelop by building over there and then demolishing this after that.
Well, that's what I would be thinking.
You could phase it.
We can, I'm just thinking from a million feet, not knowing any idea of pricing, but we could build a police department and admin building right on the corner down here, where these nice trees are that I don't think,
This apart.
the only thing we ever use that grass for is to cut it, right?
Yep,
So you can put something there, while it's being built, we're still here, and then move there. And then we figure out what we're gonna do with this.
I'll probably need it for parking and things like that.
If you were to develop there, this would have to go for parking.
Just, well,
You couldn't keep this, you would have to build that and then demo this for parking.
Right.
There's not enough room on this site to build, keep this and have parking.
we can put a stone up that says the Twins lives
Yeah,
here.
We could
Well,
put
this,
a
I mean,
garage under
I
there.
know there's historic nostalgia to this building. This building is not historic by
yeah,
any
anything.
stretch of the
It's
imagination or any
Not on the
historic
historic register. In fact, up until the late 70s, early 80s, it was being used by Penn State.
How about, you know, going out State Hill Road, they're gonna put those restaurants in along State Hill Road,
I don't,
where the old Mobile station
Yeah.
In
was.
front of the mall?
not happening, yep.
I know it's not happening, but is that land available?
You
No,
really need
that's part
3
of
to
the mall
5
property.
acres for a municipal complex.